Swan, let's talk about, you're a brand marketer. You've gone to big brands. You've kind of shepherded them through digital transformation. You're being now rewarded with that experience. You're making the move to a startup sneaker company. They're really small. They're in Portland. Starts with an N. So you can fill in the blank. But what about the today's marketing practices you've seen that's not working, and what are the steps that you're taking as a marketer to fix them?
I think we chase shiny things as big brands, right? There's always a new startup, always new platforms, and it's tempting to say, well, we want to try the new thing, we want to measure it, we want to test and fail cheap and fast, but without really knowing what your goal is and who your customer is, none of that works, right? We're just then churning and just trying different things and none of them link together. So with most companies, I think they really need to step back and think about who's our customer and what's our goal. Right, let me give you Elizabeth Arden as an example. 116-year-old beauty brand. The key about that, though, is all these beauty brands are trying to modernize and compete with the young upstarts, but you can't be a young upstart if you're over 100 years old. So don't deny your DNA, but figure out what makes it appealing to really connect with new consumers. What we realized about Arden is that it actually doesn't have an awareness problem. Everyone's heard of Elizabeth Arden and the Red Door. It's 100 years old. It has a relevance problem because everyone knows it's luxury, but they think, oh, well, it's my grandmother's luxury or my aunt's, not mine. So how do you bring that challenge to the forefront and figure out what tactics will make sense? So instead of throwing everything at the wall and paying for every type of advertising, we just rebranded our social. We said Elizabeth Arden is this incredible woman who 100 years ago was an entrepreneur, came to the US with $50 in her pocket, mixed creams on her stovetop and sold them door to door until she had enough money to create a storefront, painted the door red to attract foot traffic. She's the first woman on the cover of Time magazine. She practiced yoga and healthy living. She gave red lipstick to women serving overseas during the war and marched with suffragettes. This is an incredible woman that if she were alive today, we would all want to follow. So we said, let's rebrand our social media to be as if Liz were alive today. Elizabeth Arden would probably go by Liz, and let's just use social as a way to have people aspire to a certain lifestyle and a value set that they identify with. So we didn't sit and pretend that we're the new kid on the block, but we said this is timeless. These values of female empowerment matter to everyone. So our social channel became Liz's sort of, if she were alive today, her social media feed. Influencers didn't hold up products and try them on. We still have programs like that work, but the influencers that were core to our brand were people that she hung with. It was her crew, it was her squad. And when we have people like Chelsea Handler and Iris Apfel, who still, I think, eschew the heritage of our brand, but have a platform and a voice, that's where I think you really connect with consumers. So for us, it was really about understanding our problem and our goal, then picking a few tactics that we doubled down on instead of trying everything under the sun.
And we talked a little bit about that over there. And we said, look, it's important to hit KPIs, but you also have to tap into something a bit emotional and a bit more spiritual when you're talking to your audience. So what was the efficacy of that strategy of humanizing and bringing Liz, kind of modernizing her for today?
Well, marketing's now both magic and science, right? So the storytelling really worked because it's about this woman whose story that hadn't been told enough, and it resonates with female consumers today, but really smart targeting. Thinking about not just demographics, but psychographics and who these consumers are and pivoting on our media buys in real time, we got a massive amount of traffic. I mean, we got so many new consumers, not just coming back to our brand, but we actually had a bunch of young millennials and Gen Z saying, who's this new brand that Chelsea Handler and Iris Apfel are working with? We're like, what? This is the best thing that could have ever happened. So that surprised us. But you have to listen, you have to engage, and we kind of dropped a lot of the ego that some of these legacy brands have and said, who are we, and let's have a real conversation, good and bad.
Well, that's a nice segue. So what I wanted to ask Connor, first of all, for those of you who don't know Connor, he's a brilliant entrepreneur. You're on your third, fourth business already at 18. What he used to do is he used to go to his neighbors' homes, go into their gardens, find the best rocks, pluck them out, and then knock on their door and go, would you like to buy these rocks? I think they would look really nice in your garden, which is brilliant when you do it in the suburbs. When you do it in the hood, it's called boosting. So, let's talk a little bit about
product market fit.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about that story, but also related to what Swan was saying with, the efficacies of her changing the strategy and appealing to basically you as a Gen Z customer.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that you buy Elizabeth Arden. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. We're going to find out a lot.
Yeah, so you said something I thought was really amazing, and it was we didn't really focus on demographics. We focused on understanding our consumer. I think that a lot of people who hire me to talk about Gen Z, I don't know why they really do that, because I think all generations want the same thing. I think all generations aspire to the same thing. I think Gen X, I think millennials and Gen Z all resonate with the same cultural trends. So what I really focus on with brands is helping them understand youth culture. You were saying pivoting media buys to achieve relevancy. I think relevancy is a proxy to achieve coolness. And coolness is something that's not really talked a lot about, but it's something everyone in here messes with, because everyone went to school and everyone knew Jenny with the new backpack from Coach, who everyone thought was really sick. But here's what's interesting is now Jenny's taking a selfie with that backpack, putting it on her Instagram story, and if she doesn't get enough likes or views on her Instagram story in 5 minutes, she's gonna delete it because she feels insecure about herself. Now, that's weird to think about. My girlfriend's best friend, Kayla, takes 5 minutes to take a selfie, 5 minutes for the right lighting, 5 minutes to get the courage to press the button, 5 minutes to post it, and then she'll delete it if she doesn't get enough likes again.
How long is it going to take her to break up with you after hearing that?
I got her permission. But it's like cultural relevancy now is, I feel like brands are almost hitting like a moral line, because you can either expose a Gen Zer for their insecurity, or as a brand, you can kind of take a step back, understand them, and figure out how you can hold their hand along taking them to the next level, helping them become a better person, and do all of those things. So I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think that the thing is too is the quickness of shifting copy and media buys is way too slow. That's the reason why no brands are really winning with young people or youth culture. It's because they're having a 4-week process on a media buy, when in reality, they put out the mannequin challenge 6 months after it's cool. And then all these young people are like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, if you're a brand and you say on fleek, like what? Like, it just makes no sense. I seriously think that every brand should literally have a youth advisory board. That was like one of my very first companies, which absolutely failed miserably because I had no idea what I was doing, but I think it was a little bit ahead. I think every company should have 13 to 17-year-olds in, give them free Netflix and food, let them chill out and just have them tell you what's going on, because that bleeds through the whole marketplace. My mom is behaving the same way as my sister on Instagram. That's messed up. So yeah, the proxy for understanding, I think, all generations starts with youth culture, and it bleeds through, but it's so fucking quick now. That's why everyone is really slow with things like that. So I think it's great you said that.
So you want brands to fund young people's Netflix and chill, and we know what that means.
Yes.
Okay, see, he's on to something. So, Mr. Loeb, you mind if I call you Mr. Loeb? Respect is due.
You know what I mean? I gotta tell you, it's everybody else first name basis. Me, it's Mr. Loeb.
Mikey
I
Mike.
call you Mr. Loeb.
I know.
So Loeb Ventures
does
is
everybody.
uniquely positioned to kind of
So
work
it's
with.
Michael, Mr. Loeb, and then death, right? I mean, that's what happens next.
Then I'm going to call you Michael. Good. I don't want to put you anywhere near to that eventuality. But you're kind of uniquely positioned to work with some of the larger brands on the challenges that are facing today around digital transformation. Not only did you co-found a very large brand called Priceline, but also your current setup, you've got a building full of brilliant entrepreneurs and very, very digital-minded people who can help some of the older companies be more digitally proactive and perhaps incubate and create some of the companies that they now have to spend billions of dollars buying. So maybe talk a little bit about that strategy.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love how this guy says that I don't know why anybody hires me, right? And then he gives us all the reasons why we should, right? Everybody should have 17-year-olds kind of to talk to. So that's very smart, right? I mean, you don't want me. Yeah, you really do. You really do. So, but what Swan said really rings true, which is the command and control of big companies. And basically, they're all built to play defense, right? They're all built to not make a bad decision, which is why it takes 4 weeks and why somebody, at the assistant level goes to this level, that level, and everybody's got to check off on it, and it all takes time. because the fear is that we're going to make a mistake because we got this iconic brand, Elizabeth Arden, and we can't screw it up. Which, by the way, I'm very familiar with that thinking because at Time Inc., they thought exactly the same way, that, we've got People magazine, and there's only downhill from here. So everybody there was a preservationist, and the focus was don't screw it up. Now, the problem is the world has really, really, really changed, and the feedback loop that you were talking about, Connor, is really kind of amazing, which is it is instant, and there are certain things that companies used to do with regularity, which they can't do anymore. Now, they call light a great disinfectant, and it is, and the fact of the matter is, you could bury a bad customer service experience because it was somebody on the phone who would call you up, and what would they do for there? They would write the BBB, so what, right? But now, it's everywhere, and it's instant, and you got to be totally, incredibly responsive to that. And the fact is, very large companies are not built for that purpose. On the other hand, Bonna in the last session talked about one of their great assets, and this is changing too, but one of the great assets when it came to brands, and we'll put this in supermarket and CPG, is that for 50 years the game was rigged, right? The game was rigged. So, Procter Gamble owned the shelf.
Not anymore.
Right, not anymore, but they owned the shelf. Yeah. They owned the shelf. They, all the slotting fees, everything else. If some buyer wanted to get some emerging brand onto a shelf, the guy from P&G would say, hey, can we play some golf? And then in round 13, it's, what the fuck are you doing, right? I mean, what are you doing? So they would be able to pinch out everybody else, and there was no customer feedback loop, and emerging brands were really, really difficult. It's all changed, and big companies are caught totally flat-footed with that, yet they remain having enormous assets. And the other thing is, the neat thing is, and this is, I think, a more recent thing, in the past 5 or 10 years, they're talking to guys that are 18, and they're actually listening. They're not patting you gently in the head and saying, nice try.
Yeah.
Okay, that's stupid. But they're listening because they have to, because they are, again, 1% gain year over year is the new success. And they're searching for answers. And apropos, to egalitarianism on the shelf, Amazon doesn't play by those rules, right? Amazon just puts everything out there, and it's kind of winner take all. And so they're not used to that. They're not used to a game that isn't rigged. A game that is won or lost on merit and how good your product is and how well priced it is and how well positioned it is. So total confusion, and I think a period that we're not going to soon find again of all the established players, 3/4 of them are going to be gone. And we've never seen this concentrated. Sorry.
I really think that they're not going to be gone because they don't have the ability to. I think they're going to be gone because they won't take the first step in the right direction. I disagree with something that Gary said earlier. He was like, Unilever won't be around in 3 years. Unilever won't be around in 3 years because they won't take a couple steps in the right direction, not because they can't be. So for instance, you look at brands like Vans, Champion, Champion, kids were looking at in Walmart and golfing at, because if they were caught seeing Champion in high school, they'd get made fun of. And now every kid's running to a Foot Locker or Amazon to see where they can buy Champion to look cool, because it's now like a hot new brand. So I think if a lot of these brands, not even a distressed brand, but a stagnant brand. Right. Like you look at a company like Puma, they weren't shit. And then they signed Ariana Grande, who I deem as like a cultural shaper. So I was telling Swan yesterday, I put it in 3 different categories: celebrity, cultural shaper, and influencer. Influencer has a little bit of both. They're but here's the thing: if you see Jake Paul running down a street and you're 10 to 15, you don't wave at him. You run up to him. You run up to him and hug him because you feel like you know him. Angelina Jolie, celebrity, you kind of go, holy shit, is that Angelina Jolie? Oh my God, take a picture, I don't want to go up to her. Cultural shaper, you get a little bit of both. Like Ariana Grande, Kylie Jenner, Kanye, Pharrell. So if you can really start to understand culture and what's perpetuating it, which it's my belief that a lot of it is young people and youth culture, and then it bleeds through, then I think you can win. It's just about these brands have to take the first 2-3 steps and allocating media budget in relevant, quick ways to win.
That's a bold statement. Oh, please, Swan. I was going to bring you into it anyway, so go for it.
I think saying whether brands will die or survive is too blunt an instrument. I think you have to really think about each brand by itself, because Brands have to have a good, hard look in the mirror. You're either a brand that people love with values that they really identify with or a product they love, or, and no one wants to say this as a brand, you're a commodity, which there's still a really good business in that. Do any of you guys know what paperclip brand you guys use? But we probably touch one almost every day, right? Which side of that fence are you on, and then build your marketing to sustain that, right? So if you're a brand that people love with products that are high demand, right, that's a different type of approach than, hey, if I'm a paperclip but I just need to get distribution, then Amazon and Walmart, these guys are like my bread and butter. No one's coming to paperclip.com to buy a box of paperclips from me. So being really self-aware and having that tough conversation about what your brand is and what it could be, then figuring out how you evolve, I think, is a more precise instrument.
Now, Connor, if Kanye all of a sudden talks some paper clips, would it make a difference?
Then it's the coolest freaking paperclip company in the world. Supreme Paperclips. That's what I'm saying.
He's going to have a mic made out of a paperclip form. So, first of all, that's a tweetable moment, right? We're sitting here saying that Unilever's gone in 3 years, and here are the reasons why. Hashtag Keith Weed. So, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. But one of the ways that you future-proof your brand is you talk to young people, and you turn young people into loyal customers and with long lifetime value. So when you think about talking to, let's say, Gen Z, I watched Connor speak the other day about this, and he said, one of the problems is you think like, well, that's a box you can tick. We're going to do this for Gen Z, and that solves the problem, which is like doing this for LATAM, and it solves the problem. You need 20 strategies for LATAM. You probably need a similar, maybe not 20, but amount of strategies for talking to Gen Z. So to start with Swan, how did you think about it when you were revitalizing those brands, or even maybe going into your new venture? What's going to be your strategy to communicate with the young consumer?
I agree with both of these guys. It's not just about the young consumer. It's what do people want, right? And with beauty, I think for a long time, beauty was really narrowly defined by what we see on TV and in magazines, right? And digital has allowed us to democratize this conversation about beauty. You can be any size, shape, weight, orientation, it doesn't matter. You can be part of this beauty conversation, right? And for the first time, beauty is now really about empowerment and self-love. So in understanding that, then we started thinking about what do women care about to get to that? Foundation, right? Having 12 colors, not gonna cut it, especially as a global company. So the reason why certain brands like Fenty do well are not just because of the celebrity, they have dozens of colors to represent everyone. And we know that once you find a foundation, you're loyal for years, if not life. So we really think about, even though our foundation's $35 and a really big stretch for a younger consumer with a smaller wallet, how do we make her see the value of that? How do we give her not only a great product that makes her not only love how she looks, but maybe it's foundation so good you can sleep in, because we sleep less and less as we get more and more digital. We talk about you can go work out and it won't sweat when you're doing hot yoga. We try to tap into what do these guys care about in their cultural moments, in their lifestyles. Then we try to build not just a brand, because just doing the brand is just disingenuous, products that really resonate with them. But then we recognize, okay, we've got, dark spot and age gap fillers and wrinkle fillers. That's not the right products for those guys. So we try to tap into what these guys care about, and that is about listening to, hey, am I feeling crappy because my Instagram likes didn't go up that day, or does the lighting work? We're gonna create photo filters that make your skin look better. We're just trying to tap into understanding that at the end of the day, if you're talking to female consumers or in the sportswear apparel industry, like making everyone feel like they could be an athlete, what is that emotional feeling we want to tap into, and how do we help you get there? How do we help you actualize it? It's not just about selling more stuff, it's making you feel passionate about a feeling.
So, Michael, you've got a brand that lives in many of the pharmacies across the U.S., and I'm not sure if you target that to young customers. You probably definitely target it to a slightly older demographic. So are you seeing the commonalities and the strategies that Swan laid out, and maybe what Connor will talk to?
I don't.
Great.
What's a brand? What's a brand?
Are you talking about the pharmacy discount card? It's really really a utility, right? It's a coupon on steroids for steroids. It just, in the event you are out of network, and it happens, by the way, 20% of the time. So 20% of the time, your insurance doesn't cover this particular prescription. So there's 4 billion prescriptions written. That's 800 million times a year that you don't have coverage. Now, On the outside looking in, you would say, well, that's because these people don't have insurance, but in fact, 85% of the time they do. They just don't have coverage for that particular drug at, by the way, that particular time, because you're on a steady diet by your insurance plan. And what has been happening in insurance, and I'll get off this quickly, but what has been happening is that, you are the head of whatever at a company, and you've got to renew the insurance, the health insurance, and your rep comes in and says it's going to be up 15% this year, and you go, oh my God, I got 4 in the budget. So you agree on 5, and the delta is you water down the gin, right? So less is covered. So what's called formularies have been skinnied up over and over again. But no, I don't have the challenge of having to market a brand. What I have is the challenge of educating people that this is seamless and it's easy to use, and your pharmacist is not going to mind, and bring it to the counter and check what it is on the card if you are out of network. And sometimes if you're in network and you got a high copay, we'll lower the copay. So for me, it's a little bit different.
But it does speak to the core tenets of talking to customers in a way that simplifies the message and communicates very clearly the value. And just, shout out to the brilliance of that idea and finding scale in something that was really overlooked. It's one of those non-sexy things that scales tremendously.
Those are the
I
best
think
businesses.
It's very sexy.
Oh, I'll bet you do.
No, but that's the
Only
second
when you say it,
category,
Michael.
Right? That's the second category I talked about, really understanding what your business goals are. And those businesses actually scale far better than the ones that we have to fight tooth and nail for every single tweet by an influencer, right? It just...
You are such an emotionally generous person. Thank you for that. But it's become a huge product. It is used tens of millions of times a year, and we have saved people many billions of dollars. And the artful thing is that we figured out that you can go over the rails that was built for insurance companies at every single pharmacy with a non-insured product if it's coded right and you've got the right relationships, right JVs. So it's become, frankly, enormous. But it was really an invention versus a brand. But I am really intrigued by what you did at Elizabeth Arden and how you, and what the thinking was. And the other thing that occurs to me is that in a big company, they don't start doing that until they're desperate, right?
We were in a turnaround, yeah.
Yeah. So there's the whole idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it is pervasive in very large companies. And the fact of the matter is, in this new world, you got to break it every day. I mean, if it's not broke, that's exactly when you want to fix it. And particularly in corporate America, the way they kind of deploy capital and think about things and energy, if it's not broke, well, shit, put less people against it, right? Not more, and not more energy. But anyway.
And so I think one thing, we've talked a lot about digital marketing. To be honest with you guys, I really love traditional marketing, but everyone just really sucks at it. And here's the example that I'm going to give. So for instance, direct mail. Who gets direct mail and the first thing they do is go, screw this, and then rip it up and throw it away? And we're like, I literally watch my dad do that every single time I'm home. But when my 11-year-old sister gets something in the mail that says her name on it, she flips out. Because we're living in a world where we don't know a world where we can't FaceTime our friend, order a pizza, and text our mom all at the same time. So when we get something in the mail that's physical, we can touch it, we go, holy shit. So I honestly think that brands, if they hired high school kids or interns, and then they had them stalk their followers on social media, found their address, stacked papers this high to the ceiling, and then went through their Instagram and said, hey, my name's Kylie. I'm a 16-year-old intern at PepsiCo. I really saw the picture you posted of the Brooklyn Bridge on Instagram, and I thought it was really cool. Let us know how we can better serve you. From Kylie. Boom. Send it in the mail. If you don't think the first thing that my sister's going to do is put that on Instagram, oh, my God. She's going to tell everyone about it. Now we're living in a world where we're expecting a tweet back. We're expecting an Instagram back. We're all of this stuff is just so native to us. We're if I don't get a response from Southwest Airlines, which I didn't, within 5 minutes, then I'm fuck them, I'm flying United. But I get something in the mail, I flip out. So we were talking about this last night, like Super Bowl commercials, underpriced, because it's like such a freaking massive cultural thing, right? It's the first time the whole family's like in the living room, probably.
You said
for a while
underpriced.
watching it.
Underpriced.
Underpriced. Oh my
Wow.
God, so underpriced.
Hashtag Linda Yaccarino sales for NBC.
Yeah, no, Tide killed it this year, by the way. If there's someone from Tide, oh my God, they killed it. So yeah.
I like that physical piece you talked about. One of my favorite things we did was when we were launching products at Arden, I just went through our customer list and looked at who are our best customers and who are people that we love but lapsed, but who do we want as a customer? And we just said, hey, this is a product that's gonna launch in a month. You're getting it earlier than anyone in the market. No one's seen it. But this is just a thank you for being a fan of our brand. Check it out, let us know what you think. It wasn't an influencer program, we didn't pay anyone else to do it. We hand wrote the cards from our team. We're like, these are people that love our brand, and whether they've lapsed or whether they're new, let's just give them something. And that got us so much love, because not only was it just a product that lots of people are getting through all these vendors that we've got to do influencer marketing, they were special. They got it before it. Beauty editors got it before it hit the magazines, and that actually preceded. So we actually had to turn on pre-sales because people kept calling in and saying, when can I buy this? We're like, actually, it's not live for a month, but somebody's got to go build that overnight and start capturing those sales. We didn't expect that. We just wanted to thank people who were fans of our brand. Sent out like 150 products, cost us nothing.
So, Danny, you know the best thing about all this?
What's that?
I am getting $1 million worth of consulting for free.
Hey, I haven't even sent you the invoice yet, bro. It's coming.
Well,
Right,
let's
and by
get,
the way, not only Connor am I hiring you, but all your friends also, and your sister. Your sister's
Hey, all my high school buddies work at Dairy Queen, man. They'll work for you.
well, let's give the audience an opportunity to get some free advice. So, who's got a question for this fantastic panel? Mrs. Loeb. Ms. Loeb.
Yeah, not Mrs.
Ms. Loeb. Mrs. if you're nasty.
So, quick question. So we talk about certainly with younger generations, there's a lot of legality around that.
Huh.
Like
Yeah.
how do we mitigate a lot of these issues that we're running into? I mean, I come from a digital marketing background.
Yeah.
You know, that was hard enough to try to like monitor. You know, that we were not serving ads to people under the age of 13, which is basically impossible. How do we do that with direct mail? How do we do that with Insta?
Yeah. The FTC ruins everything. So, yeah. So, I mean, like, I think the regulations, it's like only if you're selling something. If you're thanking someone for something, like, look at all the brands who send birthday cards, and then they're thanking, like, Toys R Us sends, like, birthday cards. They thank 10-year-olds in the mail. Like, the copy sucks, the birthday card sucks, but, like, they're still getting something. So, around the legalities, to be honest with you, I've never thought about the legalities very hard, because I think the most authentic relationships and the best content that's created is when you have someone like I thought this was brilliant, something that Nike did with, I think it was Nike, I hope I didn't mess that up, but it was with Casey Neistat, where they gave him $800,000 and said, do whatever. Casey in the beginning of the video was like, yo, they gave me $800,000, but I said, screw that, and I'm using it to go on a vacation. So like, he was super open about, hey, I'm doing this with Nike, like whatever, it's something cool. So I think like if they're very upfront about it, and by the way, the trust that all these influencers have with their audience is insane. It is ridiculous. So I think that like if they're endorsing something, they know that they're messing with it. So it's like the same stuff that it was like Lindsay Lohan promoting something in like 2002, but it's just at scale with more distribution and more context to the actual situation, because there's so much content being put out.
You know, it's funny, using influencers, I think they've all kind of become real life friends. Because you just end up building something real with them, right? We're not just like doing lists of dozens of them. So who are the people that we'd actually want to hang out with that embody our values? So that's a really good litmus test as a brand. If you're not actually getting along with the people that are your influencers, they're maybe not the right fit, right? Don't chase the numbers. God. It's all about really being engaged, especially in beauty or sportswear. Like their lifestyle decision makers and cultural shifts, right? So if you're not getting along with them and you're probably not using the right people.
They're fun to hang out with too. I mean, like here's what's crazy. It's like, I don't understand why brands are like one-off paying for a post. I honestly don't. Like that was like a big trend this year. Is a lot of my clients were like, hey, we want to pay this person $50K to post on Instagram. Like, no. Like, that is so stupid, because then guess what's going to happen in 6 months? They're going to, like, go do something else. Everyone's going to forget about it, whatever. So I'm trying to figure out with my clients, like, hey, how can we create authentic, real partnerships with these influencers? I had this idea, like, yesterday, like, yo, let's get a brand to put up $250,000. Let's rent a mansion in Hawaii, and let's just get all the influencers to come hang out. You don't have to post shit. Just come hang out at our house.
So not only do I not just do one-offs, I do longer-term relationships, but I also, unless it's a very small window where we put a ton of media in one burst, I don't force them into exclusivity. Because that's not how real people live, right? In beauty, people have 12 different brands in their makeup bag, so to be like, you can only talk about my brand.
I've got 14 in my makeup bag.
Right, see? I know he showed me last night. But that's
I was
inauthentic.
thinking about how good you look, dude. I mean, I just...
Oh, yeah.
But that's inauthentic. That's not how people live. So if you force your partners to live that way, people know it.
And by the way, if the influencer feels like, a lot of these influencers, like, everyone has an ego, but a lot of these influencers have massive egos. So I would not want to work with any of them, but sometimes when you're forced to, it's like they feel like they're being intruded upon. It's like, imagine sitting at dinner and someone just walking in your house and sitting down. That's how they feel when they feel like a brand is taking advantage of them. So, like, if you do what me and Swan are talking about and just, like, try to create friendships, like real friendships, not just, like, we friend each other on Facebook type shit, like we get dinner stuff, like that's where the real stuff happens.
Probably time for one more. Anybody? Right here.
Can you share any thoughts you have about like hyper-local brands, maybe people that only deal in a 3 or 4 mile radius and don't have massive influencers that can go after?
Like, are you from Austin?
Fort Worth.
You're from Fort Worth, Texas. I literally know one person who is from Fort Worth, Texas, who lives in Fort Worth, Texas, who has 650,000 followers on Instagram. So, like, I'm very, like, there was this agency called Fuse Marketing, which Bill Carter runs, and they ran this great influencer program with Dick's using micro-influencers. There's so much software and so many programs to find the advocates in those crazy hyper-local spots where you can get them. There was, like, across my old high school, there was this small little diner. They signed up for Uber Eats. They found literally, like, three of the big high school football players in the area, and then they had them come in and hang out and take pictures. Line was out the door the next day. It's very possible. It's just like take all of the macro things and bring them down to a little bit of a smaller level. But like if you can go direct to consumer, then that's like a whole different ballgame. But if it's like a local retail, restaurant, fast casual, something like that, then or apparel, that's what I would do.
I think that's actually better. I wish I could work on small hyper-local brands because
Yeah.
we live in this digital world and we think that's all that exists, but it's still about interpersonal connection. So if you can actually drive people to a diner, or that's Dick's Sporting Goods, that's great. And on a national level, or on a brand that's in 190 countries, how am I going to be locally relevant to all of them? How do I find the diner in each one? I can't, right? So in a way, while it's smaller and your budgets might be a little tighter, you can be more real and relevant. You're accessible, and that's what going back to. It's about interpersonal connections.
This might be a little controversial, but there was a campaign that Pornhub ran where they
not at all.
they took snow plows. They took snow plows in like this random place in Connecticut, put Pornhub on the side, and were plowing people's driveways. Like, it could have been a PR stunt, but, like, it's crazy. Like, that's crazy to think about. Just get creative with it, man.
Well, you're sitting inside, you're snowed in, you see.
And then you're just getting plowed outside. What's going on?
Understand your consumer.
What's Pornhub?
Dude,
Okay,
I don't know.
so here's what we're gonna do.
I don't know.
We're gonna wrap it here. I have one rapid fire question. It requires a 1-word response.
Yes.
Shout out to World Tokenomic Forum. We're basically in a blockchain building. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I want to know how important blockchain is to your current business. 1 to 10.
IDK.
Okay.
20.
Ooh.
Right, probably 5, actually. Sorry.
Okay. The balance is 10. So perfect. Thank you all so much. Thank this wonderful panel.